Have you ever made a fast decision and had no trouble explaining it later? Psychologist Daniel Kahneman found that most daily choices come from fast, automatic thinking, not fresh analysis. Just patterns your mind already learned a long time ago. Here's the strange part. Your brain doesn't only react to what's happening right now. Some researchers describe it as predicting the present, using memories already stored away, which means your past becomes raw material for how today actually feels. There's a reason your mind works this way. The brain uses a large share of the body's energy, even though it's a small part of your total weight. So it reuses old solutions instead of building new ones every time. That's why a stressful email today can feel oddly familiar. Your mind may process it through the same emotional template as being scolded as a kid. The stakes are completely different, but the feeling can show up the same way. Psychologists have different names for this: transference, priming, old wiring, but the pattern underneath is often the same. Yesterday's experience quietly shaping how today feels. And once you notice this, it changes the question you ask yourself. It's not just, what should I decide? It's which version of me is actually doing the deciding. So, when did the old version of you actually get written? Researchers Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth found that by around 18 months, babies already form expectations about people. Can I trust them? Does what I need actually matter? Will someone show up? Those early answers stay with you longer than you'd think. These early expectations get stored in a type of memory with no timestamp and no story attached, which is why they can feel like your personality, instead of something you learned. A long-running study out of Minnesota followed people from birth for over 30 years. It found early attachment patterns often lined up with adult relationships, resilience, and even how people showed up at work. Not a perfect blueprint, but a pretty strong thread. Here's why that makes sense. The part of your brain that senses danger is fully working at birth, but the parts that add reasoning and context take about 2 decades to catch up. So fear got written first. Logic arrived much later. Psychiatrist Bessel Kolk described this simply: early experience isn't remembered like a story. It's remembered as physical reactions your body repeats on its own. That's why the old version of you rarely shows up as a memory. It shows up as a racing heart, a tight chest, or a sudden urge to quit something good. Underneath a lot of these patterns, there's a hidden rule book you never agreed to. Psychologist Jeffrey Young described a set of deep beliefs formed in childhood, things like fearing abandonment or feeling not good enough. They quietly filter how you see everyday life. One of these beliefs can work like a search engine that only returns results proving itself right. Someone who feels not good enough may notice every bit of criticism and barely register a compliment. These beliefs tend to show up in one of 3 ways: giving up, avoiding the situation entirely, or overcorrecting so hard it becomes exhausting. One person with a failure belief quietly stops trying. Another becomes someone who can never stop working. Research has linked these patterns to anxiety, low mood, and repeated relationship struggles. Mostly because they operate quietly, underneath conscious awareness. The hardest part is, this belief doesn't feel like an opinion. It feels like plain truth. Nobody wakes up thinking their thinking is distorted. They just think, this is simply how life is. Naming the pattern out loud is actually a small act of rebellion. Research on putting feelings into words suggests it can calm the brain's alarm system. Sometimes saying it is the first step to loosening its grip. Why does old pain sometimes feel like present-day intuition? Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio found that decisions are often guided by bodily feelings tied to past experiences. Gut reactions that fire before conscious thought even starts, long before you've even named what you're feeling. One of his patients lost the ability to feel emotion after brain damage. He kept a sharp mind, but suddenly couldn't make even small decisions. Turns out emotion isn't the enemy of good choices. It's part of the engine. The trouble starts when those feelings were shaped in difficult conditions. A kid punished for speaking up may build an alarm around being seen. Years later, something can feel off about a promotion, a presentation, any bold move, even when nothing is actually wrong. This is how adults can mistake old pain for present intuition. Real intuition tends to feel calm and specific. A trauma response often feels urgent and all-consuming. Experiments have shown the body can register risk through physical changes before the conscious mind even notices. The body sometimes knows first. So here's the practical part. A feeling is often data about your history, not necessarily data about your current situation. Learning to tell the difference is a skill you can build. Sociologist Robert Merton had a name for this back in 1948, the self-fulfilling prophecy. A belief that isn't even true can still shape behavior until it comes true anyway. Picture someone who expects to get rejected. They act a little guarded, just in case. That guardedness can read as coldness to other people. Others pull back. And the original belief gets one more piece of proof. There's a simple idea in neuroscience. Neurons that fire together wire together. So every time this loop repeats, the pathway gets a little stronger, a little easier to fall into next time. Confirmation bias acts almost like a bodyguard for the belief. Research suggests people spend far more time on information that agrees with them than information that challenges what they already think. This may explain the strange repetition some people notice in their own life. The same type of boss. The same relationship ending the same way. It's less like predicting the future, and more like quietly building it. Breaking a loop like this usually takes what's called a disconfirming experience, deliberately acting against the old pattern and letting reality prove it wrong. This is the same idea behind a lot of exposure-based therapy. Psychologist Dweck spent decades studying how people relate to their own traits. People who see their traits as fixed tend to avoid challenges and struggle after failure. People who see traits as changeable tend to keep growing. The difference is belief, not biology. The old version of you mostly survives by convincing you it is you. It hides behind lines like, "That's just my personality," or, "Some people simply aren't built for that." But research on brain plasticity shows the adult brain keeps changing in response to repeated experience, well into later life, not just childhood, which quietly breaks the idea of a fixed, unchangeable self. Long-term personality studies show traits like emotional steadiness can shift meaningfully across adulthood. The data itself suggests personality is a moving target, not a permanent label. There's a simple idea from the book Atomic Habits worth borrowing here. Every action is like a small vote for the kind of person you're becoming. Identity isn't discovered like a buried treasure. It's built one small choice at a time. Saying a pattern is running, instead of "this is who I am," creates a small but real distance. And that distance alone can improve how you handle emotions and make decisions. So, how do you actually start retiring the old decision maker? Step 1 is simply noticing. Keep a small journal of major choices and the feelings behind them. Patterns that feel invisible in the moment often become obvious on paper. Step 2 is learning to pause. Researcher Kross found that asking, "What would I tell a friend here?" activates calmer, more reflective thinking. It quiets the reactive part of your mind, just enough. Step 3 involves something called memory reconsolidation. When an old emotional memory gets triggered alongside a new, contradicting experience, the original wiring can actually update, not just get pushed down and ignored. Step 4 is choosing one small action each week that your old pattern usually forbids. Speaking up once. Resting without guilt once. Small, repeated evidence for the brain to work with. Step 5 is changing your environment, not just your willpower. Research suggests everyday surroundings quietly trigger a large share of daily behavior. New surroundings can shift you faster than sheer effort ever could. Step 6 is simply being patient with the timeline. New automatic behaviors tend to take a couple of months to settle in. The old version of you won't vanish overnight, but every small choice quietly weakens its grip. If any part of this put words to something you felt for years but could never quite name, consider subscribing. This channel exists to turn ideas like these into something you can actually use in real life. Your future self, the one deciding from a little more awareness instead of old wounds, can start with a small choice right now. Here's something worth trying. Leave a comment describing one decision you now suspect the old version of you made. Reading through comments on a video like this is often the most powerful part. You'll see other people recognizing the exact same quiet patterns. And if you know someone stuck in a cycle they can't quite see, this might be worth sending their way.